ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, it's time for What Do You Call It? Podcast.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another episode of What Do You Call It? Podcast. I'm your host, GB, and with this podcast, you're going to listen to it whether you want to or not. So I was trying to be funny there with the Bulldog girl, which we all found out last year, which is awesome. But anyway, wrestling royalty is in the house. Please give it up for the daughter of the late WWE Hall of Famer, Davey Boy Smith. It's Georgia Smith. How are you doing today? You all right?
I'm good. Thank you for having me. You know, we met at Rev Pro and the WrestleCon back in 2015. And now here we are. After all of this has been said and done, the pandemic's slowing down. I'm in Tampa and yeah, we're here. So I'm happy that we've reconnected now after all this time.
It is good. It's been quite a long time and I'm super glad that you actually did remember me. You even sent me emails like, yes. But no, it's awesome. Like, I'm a fanboy. Normally, as a theme of the show, I would normally go back to the beginning and talk about how you got into wrestling or how you became a fan or, whatever. But because it was recent and as a fan, I was proud to see it finally happen, as you can imagine fans across the world were. Can you please tell the listeners what was it like for you and your family to finally induct your dad into the Hall of Fame after years and years of campaigning for his induction? How did you find out? And were you also gutted to not have any fans?
Oh man, you just reminded me. I should have, because I've got a Hall of Fame ring in the room, but I can maybe go grab it in a bit. But yeah, it was like you said, it was a long time coming. I feel it happened much sooner, but things happen the way they're meant to, and I'm glad that it happened in Tampa, where my brother and I live, and where my dad lived, and Raymond James Stadium and Tropicana Field aren't too far from my house, so that was really cool to be able to just drive there, and there was no stress, with the plane rides and traveling and all that. And my mom flew down, and that was really cool. It was, I felt sad that my dad didn't have an audience for it, and obviously his father and my dad's sister, they couldn't attend it, but we all came together. We made it work. It was, I still can't believe it happened. It was like, as the big build up, and then it was like, it's done. But it was really bittersweet, because I wish my dad would have been there for it, but it was really, it was like a dream come true. It was like something that I've been hoping and wishing and wanting, because I know it's something that my dad wanted, and my dad's best work was in WWE, and the biggest, most influential matches were with WWE, and he put British wrestling on the map, and NXT UK, I believe, wouldn't be existing if it wasn't for him. So
absolutely,
like I said, it maybe should have happened a little sooner than that, but it's happened now, and my dad's Hall of Famer, and last year, 2020, he was supposed to go in, and my brother got the call. It was about February he got the call, and usually when you're going into the Hall of Fame, the Hall of Famers have like a heads up, like November, December time. And I believe Batista and NWO were announced in November. Yeah. And I just thought, I don't know if they're going to announce my dad. There was never any inclinations, no hints to it. I remember WWE had asked me at that previous WrestleMania in 2019, they were like, oh, what do you think of your dad going in? Is it something you want? I was like, of course it is. And I never really heard anything back about it. Just kind of said like, well, you never know, it's, we pick through different people. And I was like, okay. Didn't really expect anything. And I remember the first announcements for NWO Batista in November. And you usually kind of know then, or they give you a hint or a heads up. And it was getting into February. And I was like, I don't think he's going to go in. And then it was like Valentine's Day around then. My brother told me, well, he kind of gave me a false finish. He said he was going to AEW at the time, that was the big surprise. He wanted to come home now. I was doing my taxes, and he said, you need to come home now because I've got a surprise to tell you. So, okay. And he said, I've got champagne and, just really need you to come home so we can talk about it. And I want to get our mom on the phone. And I was like, all right. And then he says, to my mom and us on speakerphone, I'm going to AEW. And I was like, what? Okay. And I was like excited, like happy, like, but I was at the same time, I was like, he's signed with the MLW. I was like, I'm kind of confused, but I was like, oh, all right. And he kept it going. And we were like, okay, cool. And then he was like, I'm just kidding, Davey's going in the Hall of Fame. So you're not going into AEW? He was like, no. He said, but I needed you to come home and I needed her too. So I would tell you guys all at the same time, but I didn't want to tell you before that. I wanted you both to know at the same time. And I was like, how long have you known about this? He was like, about a week. He said, but I was told that I couldn't tell you about it. And I was like, whoa. And he was like, yeah, so I'm going to go on the bump tomorrow to announce it on there. And I was like, okay. And then for some reasons outside of WWE's power and Harry, they didn't announce it. And they said, we're going to announce it on Corey Graves' podcast about March 12th. I was like, so keep in mind, this was like Valentine's Day. So I was like, I have to keep this quiet for over a month. And they're like,
that must have been so difficult in this day and age as well.
I know. I was like, so it was like only my mom knew, Harry, myself, Natty obviously knew because she was in the company. And I told a couple of my cousins, and like that was it. I told my work at the time, I was like, I need this block of time off. And they were like, well, why? And I was like, I can't really, like, I had to like that quiet about it. I didn't want it to get out.
Even with your work? Like, no.
Okay. I understand. All I told them was I'm going to WrestleMania.
Oh, okay.
I need that. And they were like, okay, well, we know she's big in the big wrestling family. So, yeah. And then March 12th, it got announced. And I remember like on Twitter and social media, everybody's like, congrats, like all before it was announced. And I couldn't acknowledge them. I couldn't respond. I was just like, oh God, I have to keep this. And then March 12th, it was, and you know what happened March 12th? The world.
COVID.
Yeah. So I was like, okay. And they were like, WWE, they tried, they were still hoping for a show. Our mayor here, Jane Castor, was like, we're still going ahead with it. Okay. And then, obviously they did go ahead, but it was at the Performance Center. And the people liaisons with WWE had told me, we're going to have your dad in the Hall of Fame, but we're going to do a Hall of Fame ceremony when we're allowed to have fans back at our next pay-per-view. We're hoping Survivor Series, hoping November. No, it didn't happen. No. And I didn't know like how they were going to go about it, this year, but they made it work. It was crazy. I had an outfit and everything planned for last year. And then when I went to go take it out of my closet, because it was sitting in my closet, all like the beading and everything had like fallen off it. And I was like, okay, well, this isn't good. And so like the week before I got a dress, and you guys, my followers might know, I really love leopard print. So I had that Union Jack clutch. Harry was all white, the big gold chain. If you guys, you can't miss Harry's.
I love your brother's fashion sense, by the way. It's just, it sticks up like a sore thumb, but I love it.
Fashion sense. Yeah, so it was really cool. And, WWE, they gave us, Hall of Fame treatment. We got picked up in an Escalade SUV to the hotel, and they really went above and beyond for us. And I didn't know what to expect. I was like, maybe at this rate I'll just go home, or because luckily it's just like 10 minutes away. I was like, but no, they took care of us at the hotel. Gave us like the red carpet treatment. I saw Vince. He said hi. Oh yeah, we had the Bulldog there, named Buffy. She came for the event.
That was a cool moment. Really sweet. Yeah,
I had, as you guys know, on my dad's social media, Buffy, who's a viral Bulldog, and I connected. Her owner Rich and I connected, and this was probably like last July. And I was like, if we're allowed to have a Bulldog on stage, can Buffy be a part of it? And Buffy does like football events and big arena events. And he was like, yeah. And he got a Bulldog because he was a fan of my dad's. And, I was waiting to get confirmation from WWE if she could come. And it was kind of, because they were so busy with WrestleMania, it took a long time to get the okay. But I was like, Rich, come and like, we'll figure it out. And he came, brought Buffy. and she, as you saw, stole the show on stage. I think, with how the Hall of Fame, she really like stood out, and I believe she made that Hall of Fame special because it was kind of, I don't want to say like a clinical event, but it was like very, there's nobody there. So
it was kind of hard to embrace, the induction sort of thing. Yeah. But the introduction for your family did stick out, and a lot of fans appreciated the fact that you had the Bulldog out there, and Harry was there, and you was there, and your mum was there. It was just it was a nice moment, to be fair. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was. Vince loved her. Hunter was like, "Can I get some selfies with her? My daughter loves Bulldogs." Yeah, and that was really cool. And then WrestleMania Day 1, we were there because they did the 2020 people, and kept getting delayed because of the weather. And I was
just jinx on you.
Right? Like, and that whole week, it was beautiful weather. Like, it was like, like Disney, like Trek weather. It was beautiful, sunny, wonderful. And that day it was like scalding hot. It was like 90 degrees. And then it was like 8 o'clock. Once 8 o'clock hits, right when the pay-per-view starts, yeah. And my mom and I we went outside to see the national anthem. And it was, it was raining, and there was the security guard said, you guys got to go back in and take cover. And we were like, what? And it was like torrential rain. And I was like, oh dear God, like right when fans are allowed, like, oh, right when my dad's like, when we have an audience.
Yep. Finally get that moment when everyone gives your dad that well-deserved applause for his induction.
But luckily it had calmed down a bit. It was still, walking off the ramp, it was like, and that drive for now, it got wrecked, like the train of it got wet and ruined. But I was just grateful I didn't like slip or anything, because it was like super slippery. Yeah. And then, we did the stars and waved to everybody. And that was really cool because, Harry's been in front of large, huge audiences like that, wrestling. My mom, she was at Wembley Stadium, and then she accepted my grandfather Stu's Hall of Fame award at that WrestleMania. And I was like, it would be just really, really cool if like I could have that for my dad. Like that would be really cool to experience like that. And having not seen an audience that big in so long.
Yeah.
So that was really cool.
I can imagine it was a special moment, obviously for your family, but the fans as well, like especially the UK fans, like we just loved it, and it was just like it was one of the highlights of the weekend. And I'm glad your dad finally was inducted. Just to rewind to the back to the beginning a little bit. As I know you have 3 passports: UK, Canada, and US. I actually want to know, which country did you spend most of your childhood in? Because I can imagine you traveling a lot with your dad.
I'm going to say USA. So Tampa was probably all together here. I was born and raised, I was born in Calgary. And then in 91, we moved to Florida because of WWF at the time. My dad's job, like he didn't have to move, but it was just easier for him to commute and be there. And, my Aunt Ellie and my Uncle Jim were here. And my dad's colleagues and friends were all here. So it just worked out. And yeah, we were here for 5 years, and then we returned to Canada. And I did pretty much all of my elementary school, junior high, high school there, and then I returned to Florida. And I've been back and forth in Florida for over 10 years in my adult life, and then plus all the years I lived here when I was younger. So in total, yeah, I've probably been off and on here for like 20 years. And then I lived in England for 5 years.
Oh, okay, is that when you was doing quite a lot of appearances as well? So that's how I got to meet you as well at RevPro and WrestleCon. Where was it in England that you lived, by the way? Just out of curiosity.
In West Midlands. So I lived like right, maybe about 15 minutes from Stratford-upon-Avon.
Oh, okay. I haven't been there, but I just thought the listeners would be interested.
Oh, yeah. I lived over there. So if you go one way, you'll go towards like up north. So like Birmingham. Yeah. So if you take like one, you're going to go Birmingham. And then if you go at the time where I lived, if you go right, you're going to be going to like Leamington Spa, Stratford-upon-Avon. Eventually you'll hit Leicester. And then if you go one way, you're going to go Worcester, the Malverns, then it will eventually take you to like a Welsh area. Yeah,
knowledge is better
I
than
was
men.
like, right.
And I've lived all my life. I feel quite ashamed, actually. I'd like to know, what was it like growing up as the daughter of the British Bulldog? When is it that you realised your dad's popularity? Like, oh, he's actually a superstar. Like, he's larger than life.
Well, I mean, like it was all I kind of knew of. You know, my first early years were seeing my dad on TV. You know, he wasn't really a lot, and I knew him on TV, so that's why people be like, "Why do you call your dad Davey and not Dad?" And as you'll see in the upcoming documentary of my dad on Icons, WWE, little plug there, I discussed that as well, but. He was always Davey to Harry and I. When he was home, my mom would call him Davey. On TV, he was Davey. So that's how I knew him. I knew him like that. And, wherever we went, like whether it be to the mall or to like Disney World or Busch Gardens or to McDonald's, 7-Eleven, people would stop him. He'd get like a lot of people that would stop him. And I noticed as well, like, when I watch like Flintstones or like even like the Simpsons or the Jetsons, the dad, he's like in a suit and tie and he's eating breakfast in the morning, reading the paper, and he's out the door working.
Sort of 9 to 5 sort of thing. Yeah.
9 to 5 type thing. And my friends, my early friends, when I was in elementary school, all their dads were like that. And I thought, there's something different about my dad. He's wearing like he's pretty larger than life. He's got a pouch. He's not wearing a suit and tie. He's got braids. But something's different. And I think it kind of clicked for me when we went to, I think I was about 4 years old, and Mickey Mouse at Disney World, the guy that dressed up as Mickey Mouse, came up with a notepad asking my dad for an autograph. And the kids, they go up to all mascots and ask them. That when Mickey, and I think it was a guy dressed as Pluto or the Chipmunks,
they just like queuing up for your dad's autograph at Disneyland.
Mickey Mouse wants my dad's autograph. I was like, that's pretty cool. And it was we did a lot of traveling, and I think that's where my love for traveling has come from, was because that pretty much from the get-go I was traveling with my dad, like my early years before I went to school. And then, while I was in school, if there was any WrestleMania or a SummerSlam, or if there was house shows nearby, we were always going to them. When my dad was for WCW in '93, that was actually really fun because they were doing their wrestling at Universal Studios. And Harry and I would go, we'd watch the show at Universal Studios, and then we go and watch the wrestling. It's a pretty sweet day for like a 7-year-old and an 9-year-old. Like that's pretty amazing. And we'd go on all the rides. Yeah.
One thing I've noticed, and I will talk about the Instagram account and your dad's social media, because it has developed such a strong following. But one thing I've noticed personally is the old family photos, and it makes me smile as well. But I'd like to discuss that you always look like you're having such fun in them, like your dad was a big kid. I just wanted to know, like, was your dad able to switch off when he's around you, and also just like some of the stuff he used to wear, like I love it, like. Yeah. It was very 90s. But I just want to know, what was he like with these trips, and what was he like switching off?
So, pretty much like the guy you saw on TV, that was the person that was at home. Like he never, and I believe like that's their true, some wrestlers you see, like they take themselves way too seriously, and I'm sure they're like that at home. I have no idea, but my dad, Owen, like who you saw on TV, with the exception of him playing a villain and stuff, like that's who you got at home, like a prankster, kind of mischievous person. And then my dad was pretty laid back, pretty mellow. When he was home, because it still is, but it was very demanding. Like I remember going weeks not seeing my dad, or like a month not seeing him. And, back then it was like the road maps that you'd have to pull out and drive. Like you didn't have an Uber, you didn't have a smartphone. So it was very demanding, right? Traveling. And at the time, when he was living in Calgary, he would have to get prepared an extra hour because of security to have to go through that. So I'm like, oh, it's here. When you're flying domestically, it's get there an hour beforehand. Harry, he pushes that he might get there half hour, 45 minutes beforehand. But my dad and Brett and Owen at the time, they'd have to be at the airport like 2 hours early, you know, and then get a rental car. And then, you know, you'd have to go work out. You're going to have to go do this, do that, you know, find a hotel. And then, you know, you're going to get probably stopped by a bunch of fans. And that's just the life that it was. Like, my dad never complained. He was grateful for it. But just even thinking about it, like, and like the lack of sleep and everything, I'd be like, ay. And then you got to tan and you got to make sure your gear's right. You got to do this and do that. So when he would come home, he just kind of would just watch TV, order a pizza. You know, he might play Doom or something on the PC, the computer, maybe Call of Duty or something. He loved like playing Mario, those type of games.
Really? That's pretty cool.
Yeah. There's a picture. I don't know if you've seen it, but he's playing like a Mike Tyson Punch Out. He's sitting like, it's in my cousin Ted's room when Ted was like 5 or something, 6, 8 or something. And he's just playing Mike Tyson Punch Out. He's got the braids. It's like some viral picture and people always show it to me. Yeah. Yeah, so that's kind of, and if we were in Florida, he would like go on the jet ski. He'd go on like a motorcycle. He was always wanting to like be adventurous. I don't know if that's like a Sagittarius thing, but he was always like just wanting to live and do stuff. And at the same time, he would just kind of, you know, he would either sit in the jacuzzi or in the pool and just veg out and chill, or just like sleep for long periods because he was tired. And then he'd be like, all right, gonna go work out, gonna do this. But I was very grateful. I mean, before he went back in 99, he had a long break because, or not too long of a break, but he had that back injury, and then he was training and getting back into the swing of things for when he returned to WWF at the time, back in 99 after Owen died. And that was like a big chunk that I had spent with my dad, because prior to that, I never saw him. So that was really cool. Like, we learned about each other, and you know, we developed a really strong bond, and we kind of kept that going till about, you know, till the time he died. You know, sometimes, you know, fathers and daughters, or, you know, sometimes with your parents or your siblings, you don't get along at certain points. But you know, he was my best friend, and you know, he was teaching me how to drive. You know, he was kind of showing me how to work out and train. So I just wish he was here so I could do more with him and actually train with him, because I proper training. But yeah.
I mean, like, you carry on his legacy on a daily basis. I mean, like, I was going to show this at the end, but, you know, like, the fans still talk about him. Yep, I love it. Anytime we're in a team meeting, just like casually, like, give them. I only like a few people notice, but they're older. I'm like, everyone knows. Like, they don't know who John Cena is, Roman Reigns, but they'll know who British Bulldog is. But one thing I did want to ask, from what you said, is about basically traveling with your dad. But I just want to know, when you would go backstage and meet some of the talent, I just want to know who were the kindest to you.
The Rock was very nice. My dad introduced me to him. When I was like 13, I had a massive crush on him, and I was like, can you please, like, introduce me to him? But you know, I've seen The Rock a few times since then, and he's always, you know, going back to 2000 or 2008 or 2017, 2020, he's always the same. I've never encountered, he's in a bad mood. Like, no, he's always been very, very nice and humble. Let me see. Who else is there? There's like so many. There's none that I'm like, oh, you know, stay away from him. The type of, I mean, and if there is, I'll shut up. I won't say anything about it. But, you know, Macho Man, him and my dad were friends. I really loved him growing up. And he was always nice. And, you know, I think him and Elizabeth, they wanted kids, or it just didn't happen. So, like, he was always really nice to Harry and I. And, you know, him and my dad, they'd always go motorcycle riding. Yeah, they were cool. I liked Ultimate Warrior. He stayed at my house, stayed in a few times.
There is one person, actually. It's just because I remember the episode when your dad passed away, Confidential. Undertaker. He was speaking so high of your dad and talking about the memories and what he was like backstage. And I think this is when he was doing the biking gimmick. But what was he like backstage towards you?
Undertaker was always really nice. I don't know if you've seen a picture, but like I'm holding his hand. I must have been like 3 or 4 years old, had no fear. It's just like, but I remember it was the WrestleMania. I think it was in '94. It was when it was in Connecticut. It was in Hartford or something. And it was when Jonathan Taylor Thomas was there. Anyway, my dad, it was when the Allied Powers had formed. Lex and my dad.
Yeah.
And they were in a room doing like rehearsals or doing promos or they're filming something. It was like hours that they were in there. And this arena that we were in, it was like freezing. And like, I think my mom and Harry were doing something, or Harry was doing the fan access, but I was outside on the wall, outside the door. And like, I remember I just like fell asleep and I was just like really tired. And Undertaker had like leather, like, I can't remember if it was like a biker jacket, but he came up and he draped his jacket on me.
Oh, I bet he does not want you telling people that story. Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah.
Oh, that's pretty awesome. I just want to know, how did your mum, who a lot of us fans will absolutely remember her, Diana Hart, how did she find being in storylines with your dad, with like Wembley 92? Which side is she on? Family and her husband, and also with Shawn Michaels in 96 with Cornette?
With SummerSlam, there was like a lot of like stress involved because it was one of the lifetime matches. It was a lot of pressure for Davey, for Brett, and she was just a part of it. I don't think she had ever really like talked properly like on live TV before. Not saying that my mom was like inept at talking, but at the same time, when you're on live TV in front of over 80,000 people and then people watching at home, I'd be deer in the headlights. But she carried herself pretty well. But it was very stressful. And my dad was recovering from a staph infection in his knee. And it was like, oh man, but that was that. And I remember her doing the promos or like the interviews leading up to that. And like my mom's crying. And I mean, it was a stressful match, her brother and her husband, but at the same time, she had like so many worries about my dad, like with his knee, like, is he going to be okay? Because he had a really, really bad infection. Like it was like a flesh. And it was like, how are we going to do? Yeah. And, but they made it, Brett and him made it work. And, down as probably the best, if not one of the best matches in history. So she felt very, very high emotions everywhere, but she loved part of it. And I think she helped make that storyline. Like,
I was going to say, she added to it, the emotion. Absolutely.
Sure. She made it. Because if she wasn't in the equation, I don't think it would have told that story.
Could have been just a match in a way.
Exactly. And, we haven't seen that happen again. I mean, maybe with the exception of like Dominic Mysterio and the sister from what I've been watching, but like I
personally would compare that to British Bulldog against Bret Hart, but I know what you mean. I know what you mean. The emotion with family and absolutely, I know what you mean exactly.
It hasn't really done again. It came to Sean and her. She loved being a part of that. I'd watch it on TV. It was, I knew it was, not real, like with her and Shawn, because obviously that was my mom and my dad. And, Shawn Michaels wasn't coming home, wasn't scooping the taters, anything like that. And no kids at school gave me a hard time about that. Like, oh, Shawn Michaels. It was just, I'd go home, watch it. And be
teacher keep you at the end. Is everything okay?
Yeah. What's going on? No, so that was cool. And then it came to, when she was involved, One Night Only, she was in the ring with like China, I remember. And then prior to that, the In Your House, she, came out in her Mrs. Calgary outfit.
Calgary Stampede.
But Calgary Stampede. Yeah.
What a show, by the way. And you was there in the ring,
show.
wasn't it, with your family? Yep.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to mention it, but I mean, what was that like? Was that the last time that you was all together, the Hart family?
The last time we were all together, it would have been WrestleMania in 2010, WrestleMania 26. Yes. WrestleMania 26 in Phoenix. Yeah. So that was like the last time, like we were pretty much almost all of us all together, with like the exception of, obviously Owen's kids weren't there. Some cousins, but yeah. Mm-hmm. Whole lot of us.
Oh, okay. I know Harry followed your dad's footsteps into becoming a wrestler, who I've met also, by the way. He's really cool. Really like him. Man, I didn't realize how fucking tall he was, by the way, your brother. Like, he's massive. TV doesn't do him justice. But anyway, what stopped you from becoming a wrestler? Or at least, being a character or something?
It's funny that you should ask that, because I was just talking about that with somebody. Well, when I was growing up, it was always, and things have obviously changed, but when I was growing up, it was a man's sport. And, and it was like, women, like they don't go in the locker room, like this is not that, I'd be in the locker room or anything, but he was just very like crystal clear. Like, this is a man's sport. When I was growing up, I think you and I are similar in ages, but it was like Miss Elizabeth and Sensational Sherry were like the only two women, like in our earliest memories. So it wasn't really, and then, my mom came about, but, in those early stages, it was always just like a man sport. And then as I was, getting older and becoming a teenager, at that time, it was like the Attitude Era, and, with the bra and panties matches and all of that. And, my dad even says in an interview, they're like, well, what do you think about Georgia if she got into wrestling? And he was like, no. He's like, that's just out of the question. And I'm not saying like I didn't do it because of his wishes, but it just never, I think my dad, like, to him, like, he wanted me to, not that wrestling isn't the best, but he was like, I've put my body through all this. I've done all this. I don't want you to go through this type of thing. And not that he didn't want Harry, you know what I mean? But Harry, he naturally, from my first memories of Harry, he's playing with wrestling dolls. He's building wrestling rings. He's doing, we had a KWA, Kids Wrestling Alliance. He was always filming promos. Like, that's what Harry was meant to do. And then, I was more, in Barbies and girl things and art and dance and all that. And it just never, I just remember watching Harry doing the practices. I was like, this is just not for me. And, not saying that I'm not an athlete, I do train hard, and I do have pretty much a physical base of an athlete. Like, when, people meet me, they think I might be an athlete, but, it just never, I couldn't imagine taking the bumps. And when I watched like these matches, I'm like, oh my, it was me. I'd be like, are you okay? Are you okay? Like, I would be so, like, I don't want to hurt you. I don't want to hurt you. And then, but at the same time, it's like, well, that's what you're doing. Like, when you go in the ring.
Yeah. I mean, you can't do that mid-match.
Regardless of what's going to happen. Somebody might get. Yeah. I'd be like, oh, are you okay? Oh my God. I'd be like so anxious about that. But yeah, just, whereas like with Natty, I think Natty got into it when she was like 19, 20. Yeah. And it just kind of naturally happened. And she had a really good coach who was TJ, who was showing her. And, she started to really love it and do that. And it just became like natural to her. And, whereas with me, I was like, it just that bug never bit me, where I was like, oh, I really want to do it. And there was never a point where I was like, even in my that I was like, yeah, I think I want to do it. Just never did. And then some people are like, after I did the WrestleMania and Hall of Fame for my dad, when I did an appearance, they were like, oh, so are you signed now? I'm like, no. And some people are like, oh, I read in like news things that involved with them. I'm like, oh no, I just did I was there celebrating my dad, but they're like, huh. And I'm like, what? Why is this like? It's just, everybody's always like, you should, like, it just seems like you need to be in it. And I'm like, Really? Oh, I don't know.
You're going to be on NXT next week, like.
No, it's also like, and I think people think because of who I'm related to that I've just got like an in there. It's like, no. And believe it or not, I don't know if you know this, but I actually auditioned for like an on-camera interviewer, like a host. I did an audition for that, and I didn't. Yeah, I did. So, I did do that, and that is a passion of mine. Like, I am like a shy introvert, but I do, love presenting. I love showing, whatever personality I've got. I love showing that. I like good on social media. I'm good at putting things together and presenting. It's a picture or on TV, or I try to. I think that's where a natural talent of mine comes from. And I went to school for it, so kind of all fit together. And then I was like, I do the sport. It's, as you know, it's a part of me. No matter where I go, wrestling will always be a part of me. Is it something that I'm going to do and it's going to be a career for me? Like whether, on camera, I don't know. But I did prior to COVID and all that, I did audition and it didn't work out, but it was like, okay, but that was a pretty intense, crazy experience. Like I've never been so nervous in my life. Be like, oh, you got in the bed, you got, and it's like, no. But yeah, long story.
No, that's super interesting. I genuinely didn't know that at all. I did a lot of research. I mean, a lot of it I sort of kind of knew, but no, I'm so glad you told me and told the listeners of the show. Just before I do get to the next question, I just want to know quickly from what you just said, who did you do the audition in front of? Anyone that people might know, or was it just?
It was. So I did it. I went to the NXT show the night before, and then the next day it was in front of Tom Phillips, who I just saw online got released, which come out of nowhere. I think, I came out of nowhere because I think he's was one of the best on there. So, hope they bring him back because he was really good. So it was Tom Phillips, Caleb Braxton, and Todd Hamilton. It was those three. Yes, it was those. Oh yeah, and Dasha Fuentes who's now in AEW.
Oh, I know he's on about. Yeah. Will we see the clip of this on WWE Icons? Sort of as a rare footage, just like George Smith.
No, because this was they like burned it. They were like, oh god. But another thing, which was and they had told me, like, they were like, your height is kind of I'm 5'8". So with WWE and other companies, they like the women or whoever's interviewing to be shorter because it makes the wrestlers look a lot taller. So they're like, yeah, your height is a bit of an issue. It's like, oh, okay, can't really help that. But I've seen one girl who's hired there, I can't remember, Alicia. Can't remember her last name, but she's not as tall as me, but I see she's like 5'6", 5'7", and she's wearing flats. So I mean, they can work around it, but they prefer, the smaller, shorter individuals.
Oh, okay, that's sort of that's pretty cool. Like, I just didn't know. One thing I do want to ask, it's been mentioned, and I know they've just released another figure of your dad as a 2-pack with the Big Boss Man. Did your dad enjoy working in jeans, by the way? Because I know you said you was quite close to your dad at this time. I have to ask.
Yeah. Around that time was when, we talk about things like that. I remember he was really excited about like the new look because, it was the Attitude Era. It was going into 2000. They wanted him to look different than he had ever been before because they're always like, okay, he's always got the Union Jack. He's always in the tights. So they kind of wanted him to like have that badass like villain type look. And, back then it was like black boots and jeans. Like you look like, especially with his look and his physique, he looked pretty tough. So he was all for it. And I remember he was showing me the different looks. Like and I'm sure you've probably seen on some WWE specials when it's like how the Undertaker, like different looks that they wanted him to have or costume ideas. And I remember they had him and it was like, okay, Davey's got the blue jeans. It's got light jeans. It's got black jeans. A tie for my dad. And it was like, And I remember they showed like they had him with like the boots and everything. And I remember they wanted him to grow like a beard.
I can't see it. I just can't see it as a fan.
Yeah, they wanted him to grow a beard. I remember he was like trying to grow it, and when I go back and watch, I'm seeing it's like coming in a bit. But he said it was just way too itchy, like he just couldn't. And I was like, oh my God, like I can't even picture him with the beard. So, but I did ask him, I was like, even as a teenage girl, like doing stuff in jeans, anybody in jeans, it can be a bit like uncomfortable or a bit like, ugh. And he said, yeah, it is uncomfortable. He said, it is. So yeah, he liked it to a point, but at the same time, like he was much more flexible and could do things with the tights.
I mean, it was interesting. Look, I mean, I remember when he first shaved his hair in '95 after he betrayed Diesel. I'm a nerd. I have to name the names in years, but it was just like a massive shock. But I personally thought he looked a lot cooler and a lot more serious with the short hair and Camp Cornette. Did your dad? Yeah, did he like having short hair, or did he miss the braids?
I think he liked having the short hair because the braids, it was a lot to maintain. And one of the reasons why, like how my hair is like right now, when he came back in like 94, his hair was like this was because prior to that, he was in England doing an independent tour. And there was nobody, in up north where my granddad lived at the time, where there was anybody to do his braids again. So he was like, all right, I guess I'm going to have to take them out. And he took them out, and then he came back with, as you saw at the SummerSlam, and he was wearing the green vest, his hair. Yeah, and he just kind of kept it like that. And he had the face for like any hairstyle. And then somebody had made a comment to him how his hair was looking too much like theirs, and he needed to change it up. So he was like, okay. So he cut it, and yeah, he was, and it's funny because like his granddad has the same cut, his brother had the same cut, or his dad, my granddad, had the same cut, so it just kind of worked out, and it suited him. And people will ask me like, well, which look do you prefer, the braids or the short hair? And as a wrestling fan, I might say the braids because it made my dad stand out so much, and like nobody had that. He had the red, white, and blue for UK, but at the same time, it's like I think I like the short hair.
I was going to say, like, I can imagine like a lot of debates about this in the comments, or just in general. Like, a lot of people might disagree. They're like, I prefer him with the braids. Or that's how I remember him, with the braids. But I just prefer the short hair. But each their own. To wrap this up, one thing we've just mentioned now with the fans is, what has it been like managing your dad's social media account, being able to keep your dad's legacy alive? Because seeing the growth over the last few years and being able to interact with fans over the world, I just want to know what's it been like for you running it.
Well, I really, really enjoy it. And, I find discovered new things about my time and people. It's just crazy. Like, unfortunately my dad's life was cut short, but with all the pictures and footage and content, from all over the world, from Dubai to England to Germany to South Africa, it's like all these people were like, oh, here's your dad from the 70s, here's your dad here, here's your dad, and it's stuff I've never even seen before. So that's really cool. And it's just to celebrate my dad and to honor him. And I try to do that every day I can, posting a picture, and it's quite therapeutic for me to see him in a capacity every day when I run it. Yeah, I get stupid people in their comments, but I usually just delete them or but
sorry, I shouldn't swear as much.
Yeah. Really. No. I do. And it's like, and I'm like, you guys do realize like his daughter, like I'm running it, but you know, that's the internet for you. So that's fine. I just kind of move on from it. But
that's why.
It's overall, yeah, it's very positive. And you know, I just started it back in January 2019. It was, yeah, January 2019. And I was like, I just very inspired when I saw how Bruce Lee's daughter, Shannon Lee, like how she runs his page. And she's, you know, Bruce Lee died in like what, 72, 73. And his like, even, you know, we know Bruce Lee, and kids today, they know Bruce Lee. It's because legacy is continuing on through the people he's inspired, and his daughter doing this, and, you know, all the short things that he did in the short amount of time has, you know, as my brother says, it's echoed in eternity. And my dad's has done that, but there was no platform for my dad. And I hope that with what I've given people, they see who my dad is. And I think that they have, you know, I get fans, you know, that are like, oh, I was born in 98, 99, 2000. And I've met your dad, or not met your dad. I've watched his wrestling, and I'm like, you guys like, huh? I'm like, he's influenced and inspires many, like young and old. And I hope his page is like a little portal for that. So
brilliant. I genuinely love the page. As a British Bulldog fan myself, I grew up on him, and it's one of the reasons why I basically talking to you, have a podcast about pro wrestling. Is, you know, one of the reasons is your dad and the Hart family, and just, you know, as a nerd, I think I did show I've got known Hart tag. Like, I'm an absolute nerd for the Hart families. But what to wrap this up, I love that fans in 2021 can still buy British Bulldog merchandise. It's awesome, like the jackets and chalk line jackets and stuff, and action figures, not dolls, and even their own comic book. I want to know what is next for your dad's legacy that fans may not be aware of just yet.
Well, as you mentioned, you know, he's got merchandise out. So if you're in the UK,
just in case, by the way,
just in case, yeah. If you're in the UK, some people, like, you know, when you get stuff from Pro Wrestling Tees, the shipping is kind of a bit pricey, ridiculous. So if you want something of Davies in the UK, Wrestle Merch Central, and they've got the cups, and they've got towels, they're coming out with duffel bags. I've got a little British Bulldog fanny pack. That's really cool.
Jackets that he wore 97.
The vest that he wore 97. So that's pretty much, to me, like the best place to get Bulldog stuff is there, WrestleMerchCentral.com. You can also, if you guys are listening to this, you can go to my dad's website. It will show you the different stores. So he's got that. WWE icons that my dad's in. I think that's going to be, they haven't announced, so I'm not sure when that's coming out, but I'm going to say maybe after SummerSlam, they're going to debut it. I'm just guessing, because that's a good time.
I don't want to wait that long.
So that's coming out. I know. I'm like a bit anxious to see it. I'm like excited, but nervous. Let me see what else is there. He's got another documentary company that's based in Leeds, and they're going to be doing a film about him as well. And they've done like some independent football movies. I've got like the whole list of them, but that's coming out. That's really exciting. And
have you got Lennox Lewis appearing on that one? Or maybe.
I'm not sure if he's in it, but I did connect WWE and him together.
Oh, so he's going to be appearing on Icons? Or not?
I can't say, because like nobody...
So I'm a bit of a boxing fan as well. That is fucking sick. Lennox Lewis on a WWE documentary talking about the British Bulldog. That's going to be awesome. Sorry, professional. Right, so continue. Sorry.
So he might be in there. There's going to be a whole lot of people in there. He's got the other documentary coming out by Lee Hickens. That's really cool. That's going to be, his is going to be about like Davies' influence on UK pop culture. It's going to be about, and he's got something, I want to tell you guys, but I don't know if I can, but expect in 2022, a little figure coming out, and it ends with pop.
Oh, has he not got one of those? That's pretty awesome. One of my mates would be chuffed to hear about that. He loves the old school one, so he'll love that, especially British Bulldog one. That's awesome news. I didn't. No, that's pretty cool. No, that's pretty sweet to be fair. But I'm so excited for the Icons episode. When was your interview? Because I know you uploaded like the images of when they're there. When was that filmed?
They filmed that November. So, oh yeah, you just made me think. So they came November for that, like beginning of November, like end of Halloween. And then the week after, WWE and A&E came and they filmed stuff about, because have you seen they're doing like looking for old wrestling gear?
Oh, National Treasures, yeah.
Yeah, so they came and interviewed us because they're doing for Bruce Beefcake and Greg Valentine. They're doing that, and they wanted to talk to Harry and I about like the Bulldogs and the Dream Team feud. So that was cool. They came for that, and they said they were hoping, depending on how good this series is, that they want to do an episode on my dad. So that would be pretty cool. But in that episode with the Dream Team, you'll see.
Is there anything that you want to own of your dad's that you don't? Because I know you do own a lot of his, his attires and his worn jackets and stuff. But is there anything that you would like to own, like the original European Championship that he won?
Yeah, that would be cool. I would like that. That would be. I would really love a Funko Pop of him. I would really love that. That would be like something I would be like, oh, wow. Because I kept persisting and pushing and poking for that. Honestly, and I would like if they did a doll of him, or sorry, a figure of him when he was like tag teamed with Sting back in '93.
That'd be cool.
I think he had like the braids. I think that would be cool. I'm so happy that the one with the jeans is out because I've been wanting a figure.
Oh, tell me about it. I love it.
I've been wanting that. And there was a prototype that had been made in like 99 and then it didn't come out. So this one, I'd be like, yes, I'm going to have like a lot of those. And then his other one that just came out with the Matilda, that one was really hard to get. And I'm grateful that I got 4 of them. Fine. That Matilda one, that one's really cool to get. The one with the doll, Funko Pop of him, or the one with the jeans, that's what I want of him, that next one. The Funko Pop. Pretty much like everything that I've wanted for him to happen or like to come out has come out. So I'm like, yay. Sometimes you just have to be persistent. I think that's about it, really. And if I could somehow find his boots, I don't have any of, but I'm sure somebody somewhere has his boots. So I'd like to get those.
I dread to think what the price would be of them. You never know, fans. But I do want to thank you for coming on. It's been a pleasure, and the fact that you remembered me from the shows. I was an absolute nerd, but I was polite. But yeah, my mate Andy was just like, oh, he's not really a massive wrestling fan, but because he liked your dad, he's just like, oh, I'm going to get the photo. Like, it's Bulldog's daughter. But one last question. It's a boring one, but I want to know personally. What's your favourite Davey Boy Smith match?
I'm probably going to go with the typical obvious answer, but that's SummerSlam 92, just because it was in my dad's home country. It was there. He won. It was made history. I think him and Brett brought out the best of each other. It was just the storytelling and how, as years have gone on, like it's still holds its own, and it's becoming probably the best match of all time. So I'm going to go with that one.
People still talk about it to this day, even WWE, What Culture, Cultaholic. It's still talked about and adored by fans across the world, including myself. I loved it. It's one of the first matches I ever saw, and I've seen it so many times since. But I personally prefer the match at In Your House 95. I think that match is fantastic.
I was going to say, if it's not SummerSlam, I was going to say that one too. That
match. Love it.
Might even go more with that one, but
yes.
I might. But I'm just thinking like in a whole, like the whole build up and everything. But I know it's
If it is a match, I'd go with that 95. But I think the more popular answer will be 92 SummerSlam. But there is no wrong answer in this. They're both amazing matches. And the match he had of Owen Hart as well. Raw 97 on I think it was Germany, wasn't it?
Yes, that was a good match too. Yes, yeah.
But your dad's had plenty of matches, great memories, and fans still talk about him. And we finally got to see him inducted to the Hall of Fame. And where can fans find you on social media?
Fans, you can find me. You can find me on Instagram. I'm at Georgia J. Smith. That's my Instagram. My Twitter is twitter.com / Georgia Smith 87. My Facebook is facebook.com / Georgia Smith 7. I was born in 87, so 7's my number. Those are my main social media platforms. My dad's social media, so his is at the British Bulldog Davey Boy Smith. On Instagram, his Facebook is the British Bulldog, facebook.com / the British Bulldog. His Twitter is at _ Davey Boy Smith. Those are his main ones. Also, check out, obviously follow him on Instagram for all news and updates and those social medias. But he also has the website if you guys want to see his diet, want to see his exercise, his training stuff. About Harry, about me, my mom. There's a section on there. His store. What else is on there? All news and events coming up. It will be on there. Yeah. So his website, and it also has his where you can get merchandise.
Merchandise it is. Well, thank you very much for coming on today. It's been a pleasure speaking to you. I hope you have a good weekend as it's Thursday. I know I certainly will, but I want everyone to thank you for listening, and I will be back with What Do You Call It podcast, and this episode has been bizarre. So it's something your dad said in
Yeah, he did.
I'm a nerd, but thank you. Take care.
Bye, guys.
Hello, everyone. I have a special announcement from my next guest who comes from wrestling royalty.
It's Georgia Smith here, and you're listening to What Do You Call It podcast.
You heard.